where we're now restoring the Morgan and had previously built a reproduction of the ship Amistad that is now on a continuing educational mission. Actually just came back to the seaport here the last couple days after the op sale celebration that was happening in Boston and New Orleans and New London. And we'll be heading out shortly as well down to the Caribbean to be doing some educational work down there. So the shipyard truly is a working preservation shipyard where we're seeing a lot of our older ships being restored year by year. Once the Morgan is done, we'll have a number of other ships that will be coming out of the water for annual refurbishings. The area that I'd like to concentrate on is toward our Seaport Village area and some of our formal galleries on this side of the grounds. And to just start off to give us a sense of what this village had been like in the 19th century, far different, I'm actually going to start us in our scale model exhibit over here. That represents Mystic as it was in 1876 as a shipbuilding town, just to give us a sense of scope here. So we'll be walking along just up as well. So let's step on inside and we're going to go right to the left here.
Are there any restrictions on flash?
Photography and the like is all fine.
All fine, okay. Oh, look at that.
It's been a long trip.
Whoa, this is close.
Oh, this is a drawbridge down there.
The drawbridge there we've got the early 19th century.
Where are we?
Tough to know the exact date,
Yeah,
but it
where's
was
the
originally
QR
run
here?
by oxen on the turnstile.
See, I would love that.
That's where you're actually getting that bridge moved by livestock, rather than the weights and the electricity you see up nowadays. But it had been that drawbridge there for quite a while. Really the only way to get across the river, unless you wanted to go up to where Route 9, Interstate 85 is, that's really where the river ends. You have to look through
Go around,
so
yeah.
this is the one real bridge. So I bring us into the scale model here to show that Mystic Seaport, the grounds that we are on right now,
advantage of them is, of course, they can be used over and over again. They're like clip art.
Right.
And those were the sources of images.
So
All
you,
in-
you wouldn't
all in
have
the-
somebody actually designing them here?
No,
No.
no,
No.
no. there
But
was-
you would have a whole catalog of these, somebody come in.
This is a facsimile of the catalog from the period.
Yeah.
So we pick boats here, but if you were in the middle of the country, you wouldn't pick boats, you'd pick something else.
Right, right.
But some of them, look how complicated some of them.
I know, it's beautiful work. That's incredible. You know, because we were looking at newspapers, historical newspapers, and some kids just don't understand why they couldn't have pictures, you know, pictures of people, because the technology wasn't there. So they had these what do they call, linoleum blocks?
No, these are not, well, no, this is wood.
This is wood. Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, it's not.
Okay.
And I don't know what they're called. They're just called cuts, advertising cuts. I don't know any-
Cuts.
Documents, yeah.
That's fascinating. Thank you, Bill.
Would drop them off. Yeah, well, it wasn't safe.
And they're like, yeah, I thought I was just,
Hope you make it back.
So this guy here, this is our harpoon. And it's actually an interesting design because when we think of harpoons, normally we think of something that resembles an arrow more than anything. They call those the double flue harpoons, the ones that look like those arrow shapes there. Trouble was, they were pretty inefficient for their time. They were landing about 3 in 10 whales with a double flue harpoon. Because entering a whale, they made just as large a hole as it would take for the whole thing to fall right back out of the creature again. So unless you have a good twirling blow entering that whale, it takes a very skilled whaleman to do that, then your harpoon was more than likely going to fall out. Usually you'll find these whalemen will thrust 2 or 3 or 4 harpoons in a whale, hoping that one of them is going to stick. And that was the case right up through the late 1840s. It's not until 1848 that we begin to see a toggle iron design like this begin to be manufactured. And these guys have a little bit of an interesting story to them in that they were developed by a gentleman named Lewis Temple, who was working up in New Bedford, Massachusetts. He was a free black man working at this time. Had originally come down from Richmond in Virginia, and in 1830 established himself as a shipsmith in New Bedford, and kept on getting these stories from whalers coming back about just how inefficient these harpoons were for how many whales they needed at this time. Up until the 19th century, whaling was kind of a secondary trade. There wasn't as great a population need for whale oil as lubricant and as light source. That it would require a more efficient design. Everyone had always wanted one, but the times didn't dictate it. Of course, when we see the industrial age beginning to come in, every machine needs lubrication, so the whale hunt really begins to spike. And that need to catch whales more efficiently spurs Lewis Temple to develop a toggle iron here. We believe that he based his design on the bone harpoons that a lot of Inuit whalers were using for whale and for seal. And the nice thing about this design was that by putting a small pin, maybe a piece of wood like a matchstick or a twig, inside of that pivot hole there, by thrusting that harpoon into the whale, and that whale giving all of its force on it, likely that stick in the hole would snap and your toggle would pivot out this way inside of the creature now. So you were able to belay the force of that whale to get it to pivot that toggle out and get it to brace more firmly inside of the creature. And odds spiked after that. Now we're hearing anywhere between 5 in 10 whales and 7 in 10 whales. Whalers were reporting landing with a toggle iron here. Within a couple of years, most whale ships east and west coast were using this design aboard. And it was the design that really stuck up until the end of the Yankee whaling industry as we know it in the early 1920s, the toggle iron here. Thing with Lewis Temple was he was a free black man in his time, but was also illiterate and did not have the right in Massachusetts to actually patent this design either. So even if he was able to put in the paperwork, he wouldn't have been able to sign away for it. So Lewis Temple never actually called this design his own, and that's why you see within that couple of years, his design is being manufactured by shipsmiths all over the world. But that's not to say that he lost out on, or I should say became poor because of that design. Actually, he did pretty well, and well enough to build a new shop for himself. But he died at the age of 50 after falling over a piece of wood at the construction site of his new shop. So Really a fascinating character for the history of whaling.
Okay, I have two questions for you. How many harpoons
They
are
hit him in a
there?
specific area. It's usually with just the one. If it's not going to stick, or if it's a double foo, they'll put in 2 or 3 harpoons, as many as they can do before the whale begins to take off.
Yeah.
So once the whale has been speared, it can do a couple of different things. It can dive, which is the last thing the whalemen want to happen. You have about a half-mile worth of line coiled in tubs in these boats for your harpoons, but if it begins to dive, you'll cut your losses and go. What you want it to do is plane off across the surface of the water. They called it the Nantucket sleigh ride, because it was about the fastest thing that you were seeing in this time, about a 20-mile-an-hour trip that the whale was taking you on, dragging you across the surface of the water. And so the end of your harpoon with this line here is attached around the loggerhead, so you're able to get a little bit of give. It will spin around that piece. And the whaleman, as that whale begins to take off, will start to throw water onto the loggerhead to keep it from smoldering there and catching fire and breaking apart.
And those are the guys that are the instructors in the middle. These are 12 and 13-year-old boys and girls learning how to sail.
That's what the rich do in the summer in
I
Connecticut.
guess so.
Look at those people up in the rigging there.
Now we are ready to head for the Horn. Way, hey, roll and go. Our boots and our clothes, they are all in the pond with me rollicking randy dandy oh. Well, heave up, Paul, heave away. Way, hey, roll and go. The anchor's on board and the cable's all stored with me rollicking randy dandy oh.
Our packet is the Highland Lass, Lowlands, 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 the laddie howling at the maintop mast, Lowlands, 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 the old man hails from Barbados, Lowlands, 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 he's got the name of Hammer Toes, Lowlands, 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 gives So help me, Bob, I'm bully in the alley. Way, hey, bully in the alley. Help me, Bob, I'm bully in the alley. Bully down in Shinbone Hell. So help me, Bob, I'm bully in the alley. Way, hey, bully in the alley. Help me, Bob, I'm bully in the alley. Bully down in Shinbone Hell. Oh, Sally is the one that I love dearly. Way, hey, bully in the alley. Sally is the one that I splice nearly. Bully down in Shinbone Hell. So help me, Bob, I'm bully in the alley. Way, hey, bully in the alley. Help me, Bob, I'm bully in the alley. Bully down in Shinbone Hell. I thought I heard the old man say, John Kanaka-Naka-Turaye. Today is a holiday. John Kanaka-Naka-Turaye.